The roar of the crowd carried up into the box in waves, rising and falling with the match below, but I couldn't have said who held possession or why it mattered. I couldn't keep my eyes or my hands off Grace, even as the chaos of the day unfolded around us. I placed my hand on the small of her back without thought. This wasn't like other desires, those hungry, temporary things I could ignore until they passed. No, this was a gentle current, persistent and impossible to resist. The need to maintain some point of contact with her, however slight our public surroundings permitted, became as essential to me as breathing, and I surrendered to it completely. There had been a time when my thoughts of Grace were governed by distance, by longing, by absence, by the knowledge of what she represented and what might be lost if I failed in my charge. In those days, I survived on photographs and fantasies rationed out at the same time of night, like a miser's coin. But that distance had closed forever. Beneath the table, I claimed one of her hands in mine, a selfish gesture, though she offered no resistance. Her fingers shifted against my palm, a silent recognition invisible to the others present. Such small allowances did nothing to satisfy me, though. The night before changed everything between us. She was flesh and blood now, not some distant ideal. I had been inside her, one with her, traced every curve of her body, memorized every sigh, and in our communion, found a foundation I never understood I needed until she lay beneath me. What lingered wasn't just hunger, though God knows that burned undiminished. It was the bone-deep knowledge that we belonged to each other, not by promise or duty, but by simple, irrefutable truth. For the first time, the future I had long prepared for didn't stand before me as something to be managed or secured. It was already in motion, taking shape in ways I could neither delay nor undo, and I found I didn't wish to. All doubt that my resolve might weaken when tested had disappeared. Whatever challenges approached and whatever sacrifices became necessary, I would face them unflinchingly, for I couldn't risk disappointing her now. And I no longer felt the weight of this commitment. I only welcomed it. Grace sat with her hands folded neatly in her lap, her posture composed. From a distance, one might have thought her at ease. Up close, the strain revealed itself in smaller ways. The stillness she held too carefully, the way she turned her head only so when addressed, the smile required of her when the camera found us yet again. The press hadn't left her in peace from the moment we arrived until we hid away in this box. She answered them well enough, better than most would have managed, but I knew her well enough to see her tolerance approaching its end. I believe there may be a way out which spares us the worst of them, Cyril said from across the small table as he reached over his head to stretch. The service corridor, perhaps. Grace tilted her chin, just enough to signal she heard him as she followed nothing in particular on the pitch below. "It is becoming rather tiresome," she said. She let out a quiet breath, her eyes coming to Cyril and resting there a moment before she turned more fully towards him. I understood at once she meant to say something of consequence, and that it hadn't been put to me beforehand. A departure from her usual manner didn't escape my notice. "And to that end," she said, "I would ask something of you." Whatever her reason for turning to Cyril, I couldn't say I disagreed. I wouldn't have kept his company all these years had he not been a man of loyalty and sound judgment. "Yes, of course," he said at once. "However I may be of use." She didn't come to the point of it directly. First came the almost imperceptible relaxation around her mouth, then a quick flutter of her lashes most would dismiss as meaningless. But I'd been her audience too long not to read the performance correctly. Since we were children, she wielded this delicate theatre against my better judgment, and time had not strengthened my defences much at all. "Cyril," she said, her voice a gentle purr that nearly had me laughing. "I was only thinking that, as you know our story so well, you might wish to be the one to tell it." Naturally, Cyril couldn't help but be intrigued, his posture shifting ever so slightly towards her as he realized the gift she was setting before him. The final accounting of it, I mean. A magazine article, perhaps, or a book if you thought it suitable, though I cannot imagine why anyone should wish to read it, quite honestly. He hesitated before responding, as if he could not believe she'd asked. His eyes came to me first, seeking confirmation of what he'd just heard. This account, offered without condition and bearing his name, would set him apart from the quiet advantages of his father's position. It would be his work, his reputation, made or unmade by his own hand. The offer she extended to him was extraordinary, and he very well knew it. I would be honoured, of course, my lady, but are you certain I am the best man for the job? I am, she said as she reached across the table to lay her hand on his. You have been a good friend to us both, and I trust you with it entirely. Long before any of this, Cyril had stood by me. When Grace disappeared, he remained a constant presence through those hollow years. Few knew of the weight he shouldered alongside me, the midnight conversations, the silent understanding when words failed. Not once had he faltered when I needed him most. And though I had no particular belief in such things as fate, I had no doubt that this was his calling. I felt it in my bones. He'd handle it with the care it deserved, each syllable given its proper weight, for the tale belonged to him as much as to us. I leaned over, punching his arm with enough force to punctuate my certainty. Who else but you? The choice is obvious. The levity drained from Cyril's face, growing serious at once. He cleared his throat, and his spine straightened against the chair back. Yes, he said, his voice stripped of its usual music. The story will receive nothing less than my complete attention. You have my word on that. Grace's eyes gave it away at once, a weight visibly lifting from her shoulders. Not from any eagerness to share her story again, nor from anticipation of its reception, but from the knowledge that she was passing the burden to someone else. Soon, the persistent enquiries, the social obligations, the constant pull on her attention would become Cyril's problem to field, his correspondence to answer, while she retreated into the quiet she so clearly craved. It was a clever solution. A rather devious one, if I were honest, though I couldn't fault her for it, and having set it in motion, she put the whole business from her for good. Lovely, she said. I look forward to it. Her practiced poise crumbled the moment she no longer needed to perform. The scrutiny, the anticipation, all those silent claims upon her energy had been transferred elsewhere, and she relinquished them without a backward glance. She shifted in her chair as she turned back towards me, her head coming to rest against my shoulder, and I allowed it. Cameras be damned. I bent down, my lips brushing against her hair in a kiss that lasted just a heartbeat too long. To anyone else, it might have seemed an innocent moment of affection, hardly worth noting. I made no effort to shield it from the journalists who craned forward to capture it, and since I had heard Henrik was in the box across the way, I hoped his eyes were on us as well, and that he understood it.